has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
This is the way. Children, we're home.
Hello and welcome back to the Podawakens. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and we are talking today all about The Mandalorian Season 3, and of course, mostly probably the final episode of that season. So thank you all for joining us today. If you want to give us some likes, subscribes, or comments, or follow us on the podcast, you can do so now as well. But in this time here, we are going to be talking about The Mandalorian Season 3. I just had a great episode talking about Return of the Jedi, the 40th anniversary of that, with Ken Bishop, who has, 3 podcasts: The Forces Behind Star Wars, The Inflatable Falcon, and The Rambling Star Wars Fan. And he was on here. We talked all about it. We even talked a little bit of Mandalorian and how that has changed our perception on, Return of the Jedi, and, getting now what is kind of the end of the middle chapter of the Skywalker saga, which at one point was the end. So kind of, digging into how that new context has affected it. We also just talked our favorite memories, our favorite moments, stuff like that. So check that out as well. But yeah, so The Mandalorian Season 3, it aired from March, right? The 1st of March or something. March 1st was Chapter 17. It ran all the way to April 19th. Jon Favreau did most of the writing on the season. He has a credit on every single episode. While on The Convert, we also got a credit for Noah Clore. We got Dave Filoni co-writing The Foundling and The Spies. And Rick Famuyiwa, who's now an executive producer of the show, directed 3 of the episodes. So, all in all, I guess let's talk just general thoughts of Season 3, because I know this one has some controversy, I guess you would say, in the fan community. So I'm eager to get some feedback and see what people thought of the season as a whole. But for me, I enjoyed this season. Now, did I enjoy it as much as seasons 1 or 2? That I can't say. That I don't know. But I will say, some of the highs, like these final 2 episodes, are some of the best Star Wars and best Mandalorian I have seen in live action for sure. So, for me, it more than made up for it. Now, I've only seen the season once as a whole. I'd love to go back and kind of rewatch it and see what I think of stuff like that. Guns for Hire, that was a very controversial episode. Jack Black and Lizzo, did they take me out of it? I won't lie. Yes, they did a bit. Seeing those two kind of took me out of it at first. Which usually doesn't happen when I'm watching movies and TV shows, but I think Jack Black just doesn't really fit Star Wars a lot, that I was kind of kind of really taken aback by that. But I loved seeing Christopher Lloyd in it. Huge Back to the Future fan, so seeing Christopher Lloyd was always a treat there. And the end of the episode, when he passes off the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, kind of made up for that. This is something I kind of talked about on another podcast. I do this show with my friend Logan where we do, it's the Stateside Soccer Show. We talk soccer, and then we also have a sub podcast on that called the Belief Cast, which is Ted Lasso recaps. And there was some controversy in this season of Ted Lasso as well in the fan community. So I was kind of relating both of those in the podcast. But really what I'm thinking of, right, is one thing that's been frustrating me, I guess, in the community is when we call things filler. Because I understand that in 8-episode seasons, people think we're probably going to be running at a faster pace than some of that, you know? But I still look at this show as a weekly show, a show that we're going to dive into weekly. We get to rejoin the world of Star Wars each week, and we get to see everything that's going on in that corner of the universe. And sometimes it's going to move the plot forward, and sometimes it's going to move the characters forward, or, a small step in the plot department, like the episode of Guns for Hire. And I know what some people say, you could just fit that in another episode, and you could have had a whole other episode of plot. But I think by the time, I know some people say the finale was rushed, I guess, but for me, it kind of flowed very naturally. I don't have a problem with the shorter run times. Would I love 55 minutes an episode? Yes, I would, because it means it's more Star Wars I'm getting each week. But that episode flew by for me. I didn't think it was too fast. I think we got resolution on stuff. It felt really good, the finale, I think, and the episode before the finale. So, a complaint I always have now is the word filler, right? People will use this all the time. I think people have used it in season 1 of The Mandalorian, when then we had those episodes actually introduce characters that will, stay in the show or come back around. So I don't really see that as filler. And I think sometimes it's hard to judge filler until the end of the season, or maybe even till the end of the storyline, because sometimes it could be a character moment. Like I said, when we were talking about this with Ted Lasso, it was like this character thing that people were calling filler, but I'm like, we actually got a lot of character development in this. That's not filler, and I think at some points we also have to allow shows grace, and we have to allow TV shows to be able to just have an episode that's fun if that's what they want to do. I don't know why filler's always been seen as a bad thing. I think some shows on Netflix and stuff kind of get away from it. Get away with it, I guess, is because they will release them all at once, or at least a chunk at once. And if it's a filler episode, you're like, okay, whatever, on to the next one. But when we have shows on Disney Plus or on Hulu or network TV, and they drop an episode each week, and you tune in and you think, well, we didn't really get anywhere in that episode, you can't just go to the next one. You have to sit and wait. You have to sit and wait for a whole week. And that sometimes, I think, artificially will make the season feel drawn out as more. I've seen some people say that they've been able to watch these 8 episodes and it flowed a lot better the second time when you are able to binge it. And I think that's part of the reason why is, again, if you binge it and there's a filler episode, it's like 30 minutes and you're like, all right, great, next episode. But if you're waiting a whole week for that 30 minutes, I think that's where a lot of the complaints come in on runtime and filler is, these hardcore fans that'll stay up till 3 o'clock to watch it and then feel a little let down. And I understand feeling let down. There are some shows that I have had complaints about as well. Maybe not Star Wars. I've actually really liked all of these Disney Plus series so far. But, other shows that might have an episode where I'm like, oh, we didn't really get anywhere. But again, then you revisit it. Like right now, I'm currently watching through the Arrowverse for the first time, which is, the CW superhero shows. And there's a lot of people that complain about, I'm listening to a podcast that was released at the same time as like season 3 of The Flash. And some of them talking about how it's drawn out. Well, I'm binging it. So for me, again, if the episode doesn't go anywhere, or even if it's a bad episode, I only have to think like 5 seconds before the next episode pops up. So if it's like a dud, it's like, all right, whatever, we're on to the next one. So I do think eventually people might look back on this show even more favorably than they are now. You know, it's this weird thing that once Andor came out, everyone was expecting that level all the time, or that in depth of. And the thing is, they're different storytellers, right? Gilroy is very different from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and I think difference is good. I loved Andor, and it was refreshing. But there's times I also just want to watch Mandalorian and have it be straightforward. I don't need every show I watch to be an in-depth thing that makes my mind think or, puts me in a dilemma morally. Sometimes I just want fun Star Wars, and I feel like that's what this show delivers. And this second half of this two-parter, if you want to call it, The Spies and Chapter 23, which was Chapter 24, sorry, The Return, that delivered. I mean, some of these live action shots I never thought I would see. Seeing the Mandalorians in their jetpacks, flying around, Bo-Katan wielding the Darksaber, chopping up, stormtroopers, and the armor using her axe as she's going through and chopping up stormtroopers. Having Grogu in IG-12 and going around and, fighting, saving Din Djarin, and then fighting the Praetorian Guards. We got Praetorian Guards in this show as a precursor to The Last Jedi when they show up. And the action scenes in this episode were just outstanding. Really outstanding. Like, this was peak live action, I guess you could say. Stuff that we used to see just in the animated films or the animated shows. So that was like a plus for me. Is okay. Then you have the team up, right? You have Moff Gideon coming out. He's got, his Beskar armor. He's got like a Mandalorian type helmet. He is fighting Din Djarin. He is, Bo-Katan comes down and says, "Go get your kid." And you have Grogu, who is actually doing stuff, right? He is flipping around from the light rafter thing at the top of the room, and the Praetorian Guards are struggling to get him down. But then when they do, Din Djarin comes in. He's going to save him. But then Grogu just doesn't sit there and be saved. He's pulling the Force, he's using the Force to pull their weapons away, push their weapons away, doing stuff that he can actually do. It's not, I wasn't expecting him to be like Yoda in episode 2 right away, leapfrogging, jumping around everywhere. So, he's able to leapfrog, but he's not like bashing their heads in with a weapon. He's using the Force to push and pull those weapons away from his attackers and also help Din. And then we have, Bo-Katan losing to Moff Gideon. The Darksaber gets crushed. What does that mean going forward? But then when you think that they're alone, and Moff Gideon has that great line of, the Mandalorians are nothing without their trinkets. Just a absolutely killer line, delivered perfectly by Giancarlo Esposito. And then you have, Din come in and save her and saying we're not alone. And them teaming up, and Grogu, using the Force to create a shield around them from the blast. This was just, it felt like a culmination of the first 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. And that's kind of what I wanted to tackle here, I guess, is what do we think is going to happen now? We even got Mando having a house. Grogu's on the pond on the house. Grogu's lifting the frogs up with his Force. It irises out like a cartoon almost. Boop. Happy ever after. But we know Jon Favreau said that he's written season 4. We know that there is more to come We might see these characters in Ahsoka. Who knows? We might see them in Skeleton Crew. We might see them in... Next time we might see them is just Mando Season 4. We don't know. But I think what's interesting about this, some people said it feels like a series finale, and I didn't get that vibe. I think what I got more of, and the reason I didn't get that vibe, is because it does set up the next adventures. You know, Din goes to Carson Teva and says, hey, I want to be kind of like a bounty hunter for the New Republic and help you guys out. Right? I'll do it, you know, kind of off the books here. And I think that is something that is kind of missing when people say it feels like a series finale. Because to me, what it felt like is closing the book, right, on the first 3 seasons. Now, when Season 4 comes back, is it Chapter 25? I think so. I don't know how else they would market it otherwise. Like, I don't think you go back to Chapter 1 unless if you have a subheading of The Mandalorian, which maybe they will. But I do think it's going to still be Chapter 25. But in my mind, what I'm thinking is, this is the end of this arc. This Moff Gideon arc that started in Season 1, where he was the bad guy. That is over. I'm pretty sure Gideon is dead, because I think what we want to pivot to now, what they want us to focus on now, where we're heading, is the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, who, of course, is referenced in these 2 episodes when Gideon is talking to, you know, Hux and the rest of the Shadow Council. You know, talking about when is he going to return. Well, in Ahsoka, if you watch the trailer of that, right, which we talked about, what is that, a week or 2 ago now, that it shows Thrawn, right? It shows Thrawn there. So for me, I think we had to get Gideon out of the way. We got done the arc of Mandalore. Bo-Katan is leading them without the Darksaber, which is great. I think it is time for the Mandalorians to move on from that. You know, it's almost like a shallow thing of, we're only going to follow the person that wields this, and they have to win it fairly. They can't get it handed to them. They can't, you know, do anything like that. It might curse us. If they can let go of that and just let a leader lead, Bo-Katan is a leader. Just let the leader lead. Then I think that they'll be in a good spot. I think they'll be, you know, well on their way. They reclaimed it. Took out the Imperial presence there. That was something I thought that might take a little longer. That's wrapped up. So I think going forward now, it's all about, okay, how does this affect... What is Season 4 about? And maybe Mando gets wrapped up in the Thrawn stuff, or maybe Season 4 is just some of him just going around with Grogu and teaching him as an apprentice now, and as his adopted son, on how to handle some of these things, and how to become a bounty hunter, how to teach him his trade. Just random bounty missions, that stuff can be really fun. I don't need an overarching plot to be invested in Mando and Grogu. So if they're going to go and just have like 8 episodes of him hunting bounties, sign me up. If he's going to get wrapped up in the Thrawn stuff in his season, great. You know, I think either one can really work. I think if you do the Thrawn stuff, what it's probably going to be is... you know, some episodes dealing with that, and then some what people would call filler episodes of him hunting some bounties. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed this episode a ton. I thought the return was a really great episode. If you watch these 2 episodes back to back, I think this is just probably a phenomenal... How many minutes is this? 33 for the finale, 45 for the one before. So you got like an hour and 20 minutes. Hour 20 or so movie that you can sit down and watch back to back. Which both has some really great action and some really fantastic things to do here. So I don't know. I know some people were down on the season as a whole or whatever, but I really think these final 2 episodes tied it up so well that I can't be mad at this season. I can't be mad at anything going on here. So where do we go from here, right? Where do we go forward? Well, Din is on Navarro with Grogu. We have IG-11 rebuilt and is the Marshal of Navarro, which I think is great. And we have all that, Bo-Katan on Mandalore with the rest of the Mandalorians. That's it, right? That's done. I don't know. I think we can't really know where we're going forward from here until we get the next chapter, which is probably Ahsoka, and seeing how that might tie in to some of these peripheral shows like Mandalorian. Do we get Book of Boba Fett season 2? Do we just have Ahsoka season 2 and Skeleton Crew and Mando season 4? And the culmination that we're going to be building to this big event that they said, this film that Dave Filoni is going to be doing. How far away is that? Is it the 2027? Is it the 2029 movie? And if so, how are we building that up? And I think that stuff may not be answered until we get to Ahsoka. Unfortunately, for people that might... Well, that's only a little bit away, honestly. So it is literally the next show. But yeah, I just thought this episode was really fun. Rick Famuyiwa is doing a great job directing. I really hope he can maybe do a movie sometime. I don't know. But I'm glad Dave Filoni's getting his film. But yeah, so we have Ahsoka coming up in August, and we have Skeleton Crew, which is still supposed to release sometime in later this year. I'm guessing that's going to be near like the December, late December, kind of like Book of Boba Fett, where it premiered like 3 days before the new year, and they said, well, there you go, there's your 2021 show, right? And then it jumps into 2022. That's what I would think for Skeleton Crew. I don't know though, because let's say, I think Ahsoka's 8 episodes. Let's say it premieres at the very end of August. Let's say August 30th. August 30th. So episode 1, episode 2 is the 6th. Episode 3 is the 13th. Episode 4 is the 20th. Episode 5 is the 27th. Episode 6 is October 4th. 7 is the 11th. October 18th is when Ahsoka would end, if it premiered at the very end of August. So if it premieres like beginning of August, and you're looking at end of September. So there's actually a chance for Skeleton Crew to take a November, December, October, November, December. It can be any of those times for Skeleton Crew. If it starts, let's say, the next week, the 25th, which I don't think they would do, but you do episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, episode 7, episode 8. So it's conceivable that if it premieres by October 25th, that Skeleton Crew would actually finish before December, which in December 13th, and then January you probably have Bad Batch or something. For season 3, their final season is probably going to be early 2024, kind of like it was this year in January, February. So looking at the calendar, but then what we also have to factor in here is I believe Loki is going to be a September show for Marvel. So maybe Ahsoka does start early August. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that leaves Loki like the 27th of September if they don't want to overlap them to start. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are only 6 episodes in Loki. And that gives you November 1st. And then it gives you any time after that to premiere Skeleton Crew. So that might be how it goes. It might go Ahsoka, Loki, Skeleton Crew, Bad Batch as well. Yeah. Oh, okay. So when Secret Invasion come out? June 21st, right? Let's count 6 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives you it ending. Secret Invasion should end July 26th, which gives you then the possibility to start Ahsoka on August 2nd. Which is what I said. Then if you start August 2nd, it gives you time to put Loki in late September, which gives you time to put Skeleton Crew in November, December. That might be how it works out. Do we know Ahsoka's 8 episodes or 6? I don't think we know. 8 episodes. And we did have directors that are tied to Ahsoka already. Peter Ramsey, he did an episode in season 3 of the Mandalorian. In season 3 of the Mandalorian. Then we have Steph Green. She did Book of Boba Fett. We have Jennifer Getzinger. Not familiar with her. We have Geeta Patel. And we have Rick Famuyiwa. Geeta Patel did House of the Dragon. And then we have Rick Famuyiwa directing an episode or 2. And we have Dave Filoni, of course, directing the first episode at least. I guess I'll get ready to wrap it up. This is going to be a short one. I just did, 2 hours on Friday talking about Star Wars. So I think this will be kind of a short episode. I really enjoyed this season overall. Think it was really fun. The finale, again, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next bit of Star Wars content we're getting, which is Fallen Order's sequel, Jedi Survivor. Got it pre-ordered. There's my Cal Kestis lightsaber. Where is it? There on my screen. We are ready for Jedi Survivor. More customization, apparently fast travel. It seems like they fixed a lot of the issues that were present in in the first game, which I still really enjoyed. So really excited for that. That's dropping Friday. So I'm very eager to be able to get that game started this weekend. Friday, I'm also going to see Return of the Jedi, as it is re-released in theaters, so I'm very pumped for that. I have not seen that movie in theaters. I've seen Empire Strikes Back in a drive-in. I've seen Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith in theaters, as well as, Force Awakens, Rogue One, Solo, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. I have not seen Phantom Menace or New Hope in theaters as well. So hopefully those show up in one of these theaters at some point so I can see every theatrical live action Star Wars in theaters at some point. But really, really excited to be able to catch Return of the Jedi. And like I said, I had a great episode talking to Ken Bishop about that. So if you haven't listened to that, but you're for some reason listening to this, go there. It's a fun 2 hours. It's not all about Return of the Jedi. I do ask him some questions about, favorite Star Wars movie, stuff like that. We get kind of off on tangents as well about the sequels, because we do try to, like I said, talk about the context of the content that has come after that has added more context to Return of the Jedi, stuff like that. So, we're not breaking down the film. We're not watching it along with us or stopping at each frame or anything. We're just kind of having a nice casual conversation about what we liked about Return of the Jedi and kind of how that has ushered in, the expanded universe, the comics, the, Ewok films, and then eventually the sequels and the prequels and all that good stuff. So definitely recommend checking that out. But thank you all for watching or listening. Again, if you need to like or subscribe or comment below, follow us if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts listening, and have a great rest of your day.
I have spoken.
It's over, Anakin!